Hello my friends.
Welcome all guests of the fair.
In a few weeks, the standard format will change beyond recognition. In addition to the annual rotation, we will lose 2/3 of the classic and basic cards.
Thus 829 cards will leave the standard format at once. This is an unprecedented situation. If you get rid of the complete collection of the Year of the Dragon, you can get over 52,000 dust. Today we will talk about the destruction of the collection, and we have also prepared a huge guide that will help you identify the weakest cards and get rid of them.
But before we talk about the destruction of sets, we want to draw your attention to an important nuance.
In the spring of 2016, play mode split into two formats, Standard and Wild. A large number of players have developed the tradition of destroying cards from old sets that are no longer available in Standard format. This approach allows players to get huge amounts of dust to craft new cards. This seemingly beneficial strategy has always had several disadvantages. Firstly, players have deprived themselves of the opportunity to use old cards in adventures, tavern brawls, and most importantly in Wild.
On the other hand, Blizzard has never given much attention to the Wild format. The lack of tournaments, support and balance changes has resulted in extremely low interest from pro players, which in turn reduces the audience of the format. So, why do I need cards for a format that isn't of public interest?
Hearthstone is a collectible card game. I believe that mass destruction of cards from old sets is the worst decision players can make. This approach not only restricts players' access to other modes, but also significantly affects the development of the game.
Of course, many players are forced to get rid of cards to allow themselves a little more variety in Standard mode. In my opinion, Blizzard should create incentives to motivate players to keep old cards, but this problem doesn't seem to bother the developers.
Okay guys, I really don't understand what you're getting at.
This year the situation has changed dramatically. The developers have introduced a new Duels mode that utilizes cards from old sets.
Moreover, the release of the new Classic format awaits us, which means that the Classic collection that was almost useless in Standard will become vital for the Classic format. Did you get rid of Classic cards that were sent to the Hall of Fame? If yes, you will have to create them again. Have you destroyed all the bad legendary cards in the Classic set for dust? If yes, I have bad news for you, as you will have to rebuild the collection. Due to the current Hearthstone economy, it is not possible to collect legendary and epic cards for multiple formats simultaneously for free. If you focus on Classic or Wild, you will not be able to get some important cards for Standard.
The release of the Classic format and Duels mode suggests that the developers are trying to create new value for old sets. This trend will most likely continue moving forward.
Even if you do not believe in the success of the Classic format, and don't like the Wild format or Duels, this does not mean that there won't be a mode in the future that will become more interesting and popular than Standard. Therefore, we do not recommend that you completely get rid of the old sets. Remember, a large collection of cards is the main advantage that Hearthstone veterans have over beginners. If you still decide to get rid of cards, at least let them be useless ones. We want to help you decide which cards are useless if you would like to do this.
Now let's get to our guide, so we can talk in more detail about legendary and epic cards.
We closely followed the meta game for 2 years and collected detailed statistics about each card several times a month. As a result, we managed to determine the average popularity percentage for each card. Thus, we were able to identify the best and worst cards in the Standard format. This time we have divided all cards into 7 different categories, which are denoted by a number of stars. The less stars the category has, the safer it is to disenchant the card. Then, using hsreplay.com, we determined the current popularity of each card in Wild. This data allowed us to identify cards that are often used in the popular Wild archetypes. We will definitely draw your attention to each of them. Unfortunately, we have not been able to collect enough data about the cards used to create starter decks in Duels, so please keep that in mind.
Well, let's get started.
Let's start with the best cards. The destruction of these cards carries the most risk. Here are the top 8 most popular epic cards. On average, about 3 to 4% of decks have used them over the past 2 years. Each of them had an important place in decks and also never left the metagame. They are all strong, but at the same time have very narrow applications. The most popular epic card in Standard was Psychopomp. Unfortunately, most of these cards are almost invisible in Wild mode, with a popularity of around 0.5%. But there are 2 important exceptions. The first exception is Plague of Death, a very popular tool in Big and Highlander Priest decks. The second card is Dark Skies, which is an indispensable card for Control Warlock archetypes. The current popularity of this card is over 8%.
The category of 5-star legendary cards deserves special attention. We made a special video talking about the top 20 most popular legendary cards. You can find the link to this video in the description.
As we said in this video, the Year of the Dragon has brought us many good legendary cards. Therefore, we decided to create a category of cards that did not have enough popularity to get into the top 20. So, here are 10 cards that got 4.5 stars. Some of them disappeared for a while from the metagame, while the low popularity of archetypes as a whole prevented other cards from getting 5 stars. A special place among them is held by Archivist Eliziana, a card that was in almost every 5th deck immediately after release. This was the period when control decks dominated. Can you believe it? Unfortunately, all these cards have a rather low popularity in Wild, about 0.6%. The only exception is Anchhair, a very important card for Pirate Warriors. Make sure to save this legendary weapon.
Among the epic cards, you should pay attention to Mana Cyclone. Despite its low popularity in Wild, just over 1%, the card occupies an important place in the Quest Mage archetype, and has enough potential to find a place in other archetypes in the future.
The third group is occupied by 4-star cards. These cards found their place in decks throughout much of their time in the standard metagame. They had an average popularity of 1 to 2.5%. Unfortunately, the majority of them are mostly unused in Wild, but at the same time, these cards definitely have the potential to find places in the future. Only Madame Lazul, Activate the Obelisk and Barista Lynchen have a over 1% popularity, but that's enough to keep these cards for the Wild collection.
Let's move on to epic cards with 4 stars. In general, these cards are mostly not used in Wild. The only exception is the Embergen spell, which can be found in both the Millantoke and Druid archetypes. The card has 2% popularity in Wild, which is an excellent result.
The next category is 3-star cards. All of these 12 cards had very low levels of popularity, but we could call them playable. On average for all of this time, they have had between 0.4% to 1% popularity in Standard. According to HS replay statistics, only about 0.1% of all decks contain these cards right now in Wild. The exceptions are Supreme Archaeology and Geppetto Joybuzz. Geppetto is a much more useful tool in Wild format than Standard. This is an essential card for Malygos Druid and Shutterwalk Shaman.
Here's a similar list for epic cards. The main card on this list is 9 Lives. It's an important tool for Death Rattle Hunter in Wild mode. The number of Death Rattle synergies increases with each expansion, so you should keep 9 lives in your collection.
The next category is 2-star cards. Most of these cards found their place in niche meta decks for some time, then disappeared. Sathrovere occupies a special place in this group. The card had its high point in Shirvala Paladin, but after last year's rotation, the card has completely disappeared from the metagame. Despite very poor results in Standard mode, this card has a high level of popularity in Wild, where it has found its place in Malygos Druid. On average 1.7% of all Wild decks contain it.
The same goes for epic cards. Overall they had an average popularity of only 0.2%, and were never main cards in the metagame, but we want to draw your attention to Cobbled Sticky Finger. This card has become very popular in many builds of Highlander archetypes in Wild. The ability to steal enemy weapons proved to be more effective in Wild. Almost 4% of decks contain this card.
Now let's move on to the 6th category of cards, the single-star cards. These are very bad cards, but they managed to get into meta decks for very short periods of time as experiments. For this reason, they cannot be called completely useless. The average popularity of these cards is only 0.1%. According to HS replay statistics, only about 0.05% of all decks contain these cards right now in Wild.
Among the epic 1-star cards, we want to draw your attention to Chaos Gazer. This card is used more for fun in some versions of Control Warlock in Wild mode. The rest of the cards are almost useless.
Finally, let's talk about absolutely useless cards. As you can see, the list of legendary cards is completely empty. For the first time in the history of the game, there is not a single legendary card that you can get rid of without any risks. Unlike the legendary list, the list of epic cards is incredibly long. There are 19 cards here. Grizzled Wizard was completely useless in standard mode, but at the same time it took an important place in the Highlander Warlock decks in Wild. This card works great in combination with Sir Finley Murgleton, as this combo allows you to replace your opponent's hero power. This works especially well against any even and odd archetypes, Highlander Priest, Quest Druid and many other decks. Thus, at least one copy of the Grizzled Wizard deserves a place in your collection. We hope you find our lists helpful.
Finally, we want to ask, are you going to get rid of your Year of the Dragon cards? We have created a new poll in the community tab. Thank you so much for your activity.
We will be extremely grateful to you for liking and subscribing to the channel as well as for turning on all notifications using the bell icon. You can also join our squad of loyal patrons and help us create new videos.
Dear friends, from all of my robotic heart, thank you so much for any kind of support.
Alright, that's all for today. Thank you for being with us.
And special thanks to Chris for his invaluable help.
We will definitely meet in a new video. Good luck.
Okay, cut.
Can you guys give some general advice for players who stayed with us after the show ended?
Dear friends, it is not necessary to get rid of all the cards after the rotation, try to keep as many cards as possible. Save all the cards for your favorite decks, and always keep all the cards for your favorite classes in the collection. Of course, Wild is not a perfect format, but it is the best place where you can always use your favorite archetypes, and thus experience pleasant feelings of nostalgia.